Hyakkimaru doesn't know his father and feels lost when he sees the evil red in Keijimitsu Daigo's soul. Keijimitsu tells his archers to shoot at Hyakkimaru, who runs away. Meanwhile, Dororo and Sukeroku are kept in an Asakura prison with other Daigo prisoners, but Dororo manages to escape. In the Keijimitsu compound, Tahomaru talks to Nunakata about his brother's fate, but Keijimitsu explains the deal he made with demons to save their land. Suddenly, Hyakkimaru appears and Nunakata and Tahomaru see him, but Keijimitsu orders his son to be killed.
What the fuck?
Tahomaru is shocked, but Keijimitsu asks if he would sacrifice the land to save his brother. At the Banmen, the Asakura begin killing their prisoners to start a war, and the Daigo army charges forward, attracting the fox demon. Lord Keijimitsu leads his army alongside Tahomaru, who reluctantly follows his father's orders and attacks Hyakkimaru. In the fierce battle, Hyakkimaru shatters Tahomaru's sword and injures his right eye. Eventually, he defeats the demon, and it is absorbed into the Banmen gate. Nunakata arrives on the scene, filled with remorse for her involvement in Keijimitsu's pact with the demons. She decides to atone for her actions and stabs herself, causing her Goddess of Mercy statue to topple the Banmen gate. Survivors from Sukeroku's village arrive, and Sukeroku is joyfully reunited with his mother. The Biwahoshi notices Nunakata's small, headless wooden statue of the Goddess of Mercy, which had sacrificed its own head during Hyakkimaru's birth to ensure he wouldn't lose his head in his father's demonic bargain. The gentle green aura around the statue fades. Hyakkimaru remains focused on his relentless search for demons despite Dororo's persistent efforts to persuade him to take a break and visit an onsen, a hot spring resort. Later, while venturing alone, Dororo stumbles upon a woman named Okaka, who bears a striking resemblance to her late mother. They meet near Hakuin Fudo, a faceless Buddha statue situated by a waterfall. Dororo introduces Hyakkimaru to Okaka, and she begins to narrate the story of the sculptor who had carved the Buddha statue but tragically passed away before completing its face. As the story unfolds, Okaka reveals the dark secret. A malevolent demon had taken up residence within the statue, yearning for a face. To achieve its sinister desires, the demon had revived the sculptor as Okaka, granting her the ability to change her appearance and voice. Her purpose was to lure humans to offer themselves as sacrifices, providing the demon with the faces it craved. Okaka, compelled by the demon's power, attempts to drag Hyakkimaru into a battle against Hakuin Fudo, the demonic statue. However, Hyakkimaru regains consciousness and immediately engages in combat with the menacing statue. Okaka employs the demon's powers to immobilize Hyakkimaru, leaving him vulnerable. In a heartfelt plea, Dororo implores Okaka to spare Hyakkimaru's life. Her compassionate words resonate with Okaka, causing a change of heart. She willingly allows herself to be wounded by Hakuin Fudo's sword, creating an opportunity for Hyakkimaru to launch a decisive attack. As a result, the demon statue is destroyed and Okaka disintegrates into oblivion. Subsequently, Hyakkimaru and Dororo decide to take a well-deserved break and visit an onsen, where they unexpectedly encounter the Biwahoshi and other children. To their surprise, the children spot a map that mysteriously appears on Dororo's back. In the meantime, Nunakata is revealed to have survived her suicide attempt, but Tahomaru has suffered the loss of his right eye, rendering him partially blinded. In a flashback, Dororo's father, a bandit named Hibukuro, drew a part of a map leading to his hidden treasure on the back of his wife, Ojiya. He left the rest of the map on Dororo's back with the intention of retrieving the treasure together later. Dororo managed to memorize the map on her mother's back before her mother's passing. In the present, the Biwahoshi and Hyakkimaru realize that the map appears when Dororo's back becomes warm or heated. The Biwahoshi mentions that this discovery provides Dororo with some choices in life.
Nice.
Hyakkimaru remains focused on his mission to hunt demons, showing little concern even when a large baby-like monster grabs Dororo. Eventually, they arrive at a burnt-out temple, and the monstrous creature vanishes. There, they encounter Saburota, the lord of the land, who is carrying a flower offering to the spirit inhabiting the site. Saburota extends an invitation to Hyakkimaru and Dororo, urging them to stay at his home. He shares the history of the burnt-out temple, explaining that it once housed a nunnery that exploited children. Tragically, it was struck by lightning, leading to its destruction and the loss of all lives within. During their stay, a menacing caterpillar-like monster attacks the travelers. Hyakkimaru manages to wound it, but to their surprise, a massive moth-like demon known as Meimei Onba swoops down and carries the wounded creature away. The moth-like demon eventually lands near Saburota and undergoes a transformation into a white-haired woman. A transformed woman explains to Saburota that the food he provided for her children was too potent for them. Saburota, in response, consoles her and makes a heartfelt promise to protect both her and her children. Dororo ventures into Saburota's seemingly prosperous village, where the residents appear content and joyful. However, her exploration leads her to a hidden rice storehouse deep within the forest. To her shock, the villagers force her into the basement, where she is surrounded by menacing caterpillar monsters. Terrified and in danger, Dororo is unexpectedly rescued when the baby monster returns to her aid. The baby monster bursts open, releasing the trapped spirits of the children from the temple, an unsettling revelation of the village's dark secrets. These children had been fed to Meimei Onba by Saburota and the villagers after the temple was burned down. Outside the village, Saburota shares with Hyakkimaru the grim tale of how he had accepted Meimei Onba, an otherworldly creature that consumed marauding samurai and beasts in exchange for protecting the village. Eventually, Saburota had taken the creature as his wife. The Meimei Onba moths emerge from their chrysalides and launch a fierce attack on Hyakkimaru. In the midst of the brutal battle, the last Meimei Onba sacrifices itself by setting fire to the village after destroying Hyakkimaru's prosthetic leg. Meanwhile, Dororo takes action by burning down the storehouse, annihilating the caterpillars and the village's crucial rice supplies. This destructive act sparks chaos among the villagers, who turn on each other in a desperate struggle for the remaining food. In the aftermath of the chaos, Hyakkimaru manages to locate and defeat the original Meimei Onba, which results in the restoration of his spinal column. As they walk through the now burned-out village, they encounter the lifeless bodies of many villagers, including Saburota. Dororo reflects on their actions, pondering whether they did the right thing. However, Hyakkimaru remains unwavering in his singular quest to vanquish demons. Ultimately, they part ways, with Dororo and Hyakkimaru each following their own paths. Soon after, Itachi and his men come across Dororo. Itachi possesses half of the map from Ojia's back and demands to see Dororo's half. Dororo firmly denies any knowledge of a map, but Itachi and his men are convinced that she has memorized it. They embark on a journey that spans several days, following the clues from Ojia's half of the map, which Itachi had unearthed along with her body. Their quest leads them to Cape Hakatsu, the presumed location of the hidden treasure. However, reaching it proves impossible without a boat. In their search for a means to cross the water, they investigate a nearby village, believing it had been ransacked by bandits. There, they encounter Shiranui, a one-armed young man who offers to help them cross the water. They board two boats, each pulled by massive sharks named Jiromaru and Saburota.
Wow.
During their journey, Shiranui reveals the gruesome truth. He had fed his arm to the sharks, but they developed a taste for human flesh. To sustain them, he resorted to killing the villagers and feeding their remains to the insatiable beasts. To prevent the sharks from overindulging, he instructs them to capsize one of the boats, leading to the gruesome demise of the men on board. Dororo, disheartened by Itachi and his men's lack of determination, berates them for giving up. She takes a daring risk by jumping into the water, acting as bait to lure Saburota. On her signal, they pull her back up, and when the shark surfaces, they stab and kill it. With their goal in sight, they paddle ashore at Cape Hakatsu. However, as Shiranui comes ashore to investigate, he is brutally assaulted by the bandits. In the chaos that ensues, Itachi, in a desperate attempt to find the map, strips Dororo's clothes, revealing her true gender. The heat of the fire exposes the map etched on her back. With the complete map in their possession, they bind Dororo and leave her behind, while Shiranui, nursing his wounds and nursing a burning desire for revenge, vows to settle the score. Elsewhere, Hyakkimaru, struggling to walk, encounters a monk who informs him of a man nearby who can provide him with a new leg named Jukai. In a desolate battlefield, Jukai diligently works on attaching limbs to the deceased when a ghoul suddenly launches an attack. A fierce battle ensues, but just as the ghoul gains the upper hand, Hyakkimaru arrives and swiftly dispatches the creature. Back in his cave, Jukai is horrified when Hyakkimaru reveals the gruesome truth about what his father did to him. As Hyakkimaru describes his painful past and the cruel sacrifices made to restore his body, Jukai begins to grasp the profound changes that have occurred in Hyakkimaru. Though his physical form has become more human, he now carries an undeniable darkness within him. Jukai hesitates to repair Hyakkimaru's leg, fearing that it may lead to further violence and conflict. He believes that for Hyakkimaru to succeed in his quest against the demons, he must also confront the darkness within his own family. Suddenly, an unforeseen disaster strikes as a landslide blocks the entrance to the cave. As Hyakkimaru begins to dig his way out, he reflects on his connection with Dororo. Emerging from the cave, Hyakkimaru and Jukai come across a sinister Ayakashigi demon tree nearby, which is giving birth to more ghouls. Without hesitation, Hyakkimaru engages in a relentless battle, slaying each ghoul until he finally manages to pierce the tree's heart, ultimately destroying it. Meanwhile, at the Daigo compound, Nuinakata recovers from her suicide attempt, but her son, Tahomaru, chooses to leave without visiting her. He sets out with his aides on a mission to exterminate a reported ghoul. They locate and wound a rat-like ghoul and subsequently set fire to the building, aiming to eliminate both the ghoul and its offspring still inside. Tahomaru pledges his sword to defend the land of Daigo. Upon their return, Keijimitsu, Tahomaru's father, orders him to lead a small army in pursuit of Hyakkimaru, setting the stage for an inevitable confrontation. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru rows a small boat towards Cape Hakatsu. Shiranui summons the massive shark Jiromaru to devour Saburomaru's body, leading to a transformation that turns Jiromaru into a demon capable of venturing onto land. This fearsome creature targets Dororo, but just in the nick of time, Hyakkimaru intervenes and defeats the demon. In the process, Hyakkimaru's left leg is restored, a significant step in regaining his lost body parts.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Itachi discovers a cave, and two of his men recklessly enter, only to meet their demise through booby-trapped explosives concealed within. Tahomaru and his fleet make landfall on the shore, continuing their relentless pursuit of Hyakkimaru. With orders to leave no survivors, they unleash a barrage of Daigo arrows, claiming the lives of several of Itachi's remaining men. Dororo and Hyakkimaru happen upon a wounded Itachi amidst the chaos. As Hyakkimaru faces an attack from Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyogo, Itachi seizes Dororo and flees from the rain of arrows. High above, Shiranui triggers the booby trap explosives he had previously removed, attempting to eliminate everyone. The explosion causes a landslide, resulting in many casualties among Tahomaru's men, including severe injuries to Hyogo. Believing Hyakkimaru to be dead, they decide to retreat. Meanwhile, Dororo and the mortally wounded Itachi tumble into a cave formed by the explosion, where they make a shocking discovery: the hidden treasure. Itachi, after glimpsing the riches, breathes his last. Hyakkimaru eventually finds Dororo, and together, they decide to leave the treasure concealed until they can determine the best course of action. Hyakkimaru and Dororo set out to find the skilled swordsmith Munetsuna, hoping to repair the swords in Hyakkimaru's prosthetic limbs. However, when they arrive at the village, they are met with false rumors about Munetsuma's poor sword craftsmanship and the supposed ugliness of his daughter Okawa. They decide to investigate, and upon entering Munetsuma's house, they discover an array of grotesque Hayadoko masks adorning the walls. As Munetsuna takes the swords to a temple for purification, an Amanajaku casts a spell over Hyakkimaru, causing him to say and do the opposite of his intentions. He decides to abandon his quest and plans to marry Okawa. Feeling abandoned, Dororo contemplates discarding Hyakkimaru's swords but encounters Munetsuna at the foundry. She confides in him about her feelings, revealing her sense of rejection. The following day, Dororo begins to realize that she and the villagers have been compelled to speak the opposite of their true thoughts. She learns that Munetsuna's masks enable the truth to be told. Armed with a mask, Dororo heads to the temple, but the Amanajaku's influence causes Hyakkimaru to attack her. It is only when Munetsuna, also wearing a mask, intervenes and knocks out the Amanajaku that the situation is resolved. Munetsuna explains that the mischievous Amanajaku had been sealed beneath a statue in the temple, but had managed to escape. Okawa realizes that the Hayadoko masks had protected them from the Amanajaku's spell. Munetsuna restores the statue to its upright position, resealing the Amanajaku. Okawa and Hyakkimaru annul their engagement, and she later marries a young man from the village. Hyakkimaru refits his repaired swords and resumes his journey with Dororo. Tahomaru and his aides notice a series of misfortunes striking Daigo's villages, beginning at the borders and spreading inward. They suspect that the demons are growing agitated because Hyakkimaru is still alive and wreaking havoc upon them. Meanwhile, in his compound, Keijimitsu Daigo comes to the grim realization that his pact with the demons has been nullified since the destruction of the goddess of mercy statue. The days of prosperity that had been fueled by that unholy bargain are now coming to an end. As Hyakkimaru and Dororo continue their journey, they come across Dice-Spot Saburota, who is on a quest to hunt down a local demon that had devoured his mother. They set an ambush and a colossal new demon emerges. Hyakkimaru prepares to engage in battle with the creature, but Saburota intervenes, now deriving twisted pleasure from watching the demon terrify and consume travelers. During the confrontation, Hyakkimaru and Dororo fall down a rocky embankment, and Dororo's arm becomes trapped. Despite breaking his left prosthetic arm, Hyakkimaru is unable to free her and subterranean water begins to rise. In a critical moment, the Biwahoshi reappears and helps free Dororo, though his sword is broken in the process. Determined once again to regain his body, Hyakkimaru engages the new and inflicts severe wounds upon it. In a desperate move, the Nu consumes Saburota, absorbing him into its body. Hakimaru ultimately defeats and slays the Nu. However, to their horror, no part of his body is returned, not even when he dismembers the Nu. The Biwa Hoshi watches with sadness as the brutal battle results in Hakimaru's aura gaining a red heart, signifying the heavy burden he carries. Hakimaru comes to the realization that he must confront Keijimitsu Daigo to fully restore his body. Hakimaru and Dororo draw closer to the territory controlled by Daigo, and Dororo becomes disheartened by Hakimaru's relentless pursuit of recovering his lost body parts. They are recognized by a villager who promptly informs Keijimitsu Daigo of their presence. Meanwhile, the situation in Daigo's territory continues to deteriorate. Diseased villages are burned to the ground and their inhabitants are ruthlessly slaughtered. Able-bodied men are conscripted into the ongoing war against the formidable Asakura clan, and even horses, including a nurturing mother horse named Midoro, are requisitioned for the war effort. Tahomaru decides to take matters into his own hands and, accompanied by Mutsu and Hyugo, sets out to confront Hakimaru himself. Along the way, Mutsu and Hyugo reflect on their past, recalling their capture and the loss of their parents, followed by their release and upbringing by Keijimitsu as they grew up alongside Tahomaru. They eventually locate Hakimaru and Dororo at a ravine littered with the bodies of soldiers. The trio attacks Hakimaru together, leading to a brutal confrontation. In a savage display, Hakimaru severs Mutsu's right arm and Hyugo's left arm. In a horrifying moment, he also cuts Tahomaru's right eye, leaving Dororo to witness Hakimaru's ruthless violence. Suddenly, a group of men sent by Keijimitsu to protect their prince intervenes. The leader sends the now loaded Midoro charging toward Hakimaru, resulting in the death of the horse and a devastating explosion that sends Hakimaru plummeting into the ravine. Dororo is captured by the villagers, while Tahomaru is subdued by a dart when he refuses to leave the site. Later, spirits possess the dismembered body parts of Midoro, transforming it into a fiery and vengeful horse. Tahomaru's group returns home with Dororo in their custody, while Keijimitsu makes preparations to repel an impending attack by the Asakura clan. His plan involves engaging in a battle at Bamon, where they will defend their territory. Hakimaru, consumed by rage over Dororo's abduction, unwittingly draws the wrath of the demon horse towards himself. As tensions rise, Tahomaru visits Hyugo's sister, Mutsu, who had lost her right arm and concealed her illness. She refuses to see him, fearing the risk of infection. Meanwhile, Nuinakata decides to free Dororo in gratitude for providing companionship to her son, Hakimaru. They set off on a boat, but it is dashed against the rocks by a strong current. Fortunately, they are rescued by Daigo refugees, including the Biwa Hoshi. Nuinakata opts to stay behind to assist in caring for the sick and wounded. Mutsu, weakened by her illness, leaves the compound, prompting Tahomaru and Hyugo to pursue her. On another front, Hakimaru forms an unholy alliance with the demonic horse, Midoro, and embarks on a brutal rampage through Daigo's soldiers as he seeks to find Dororo. Mutsu eventually makes her way to the demon temple and offers herself as a sacrifice to the 12th and final demon in an attempt to protect the land and its people. Tahomaru and Hyugo arrive to witness her offer being rejected. However, in a shocking turn of events, when Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyugo later confront Hakimaru, they discover that their wounds have been miraculously healed by the demon. Mutsu and Hyugo each bear one of Hakimaru's real arms, and Tahomaru has regained his two eyes. In the village near the border, preparations for the impending war are underway, but the situation becomes tense when Midoro's foal goes missing. Hakimaru seizes the opportunity to confront Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyugo in a fierce battle to reclaim his eyes and arms. Meanwhile, Nuinakata and Dororo arrive at the battlefield, but they are held back by the Biwa Hoshi. Amid the chaos, Midoro attacks Mutsu and Hyugo, but is distracted by the arrival of her lost foal, leading to a severe injury. In a fit of rage, Midoro tears Hyugo's head off and crushes Mutsu, but their lifeless bodies are controlled by the demon, which uses their arms to fatally wound Midoro. With their deaths, Hakimaru's arms are miraculously returned to him. He seizes the two sword blades that were previously embedded in his prosthetic limbs with his bare hands, ready to continue the battle against Tahomaru. As Hakimaru's emotions become muddled upon seeing Nuinakata and Dororo approaching, he flees with Tahomaru in relentless pursuit. Meanwhile, the villagers, the Biwa Hoshi, Nuinakata, and Dororo engage in a debate about the value of one life versus the needs of many. They ultimately conclude that only what is achieved through their own efforts will endure. At the border, Keijimitsu Daigo leads his army forward, determined to defeat the Asakura clan and find meaning in his choices. Hakimaru follows Tahomaru to the Daigo castle, where their battle rages on. During their intense struggle, they accidentally knock over a candle stand, setting the castle ablaze. The rising smoke alerts Dororo and Munakata, who are drawn by their concern for the two young brothers caught in the chaos. Tahomaru and Hyakkimaru continue their intense battle within the burning Daigo castle, each believing it to be their rightful domain. Meanwhile, Munakata leaves the Biwahoshi and Dororo behind as she enters the castle through a concealed tunnel, where she meets Jukai. Above them, Hyakkimaru finally defeats Tahomaru but refrains from killing him. The demon that possessed Hyakkimaru's eyes attempts to take control of Tahomaru, prompting him to remove the eyes, which are then restored to Hyakkimaru. After Hyakkimaru vanquishes the demon, he becomes whole for the first time, and Jukai presents him with a newly carved Goddess of Mercy statue. As the castle continues to burn, Dororo and Hyakkimaru are joyously reunited. Inside the castle, Munakata tends to the dying Tahomaru in her arms, and the structure ultimately collapses. In the Hall of Hell, the last demon statue falls, and Keijimitsu Daigo leads his army against the Extakura clan, suffering heavy losses in the process. Later, Dororo suggests retrieving the treasure to aid the Daigo refugees, while Hyakkimaru encounters his wounded but defiant father in the Hall of Hell. Surprisingly, Hyakkimaru decides not to kill him, leaving the Goddess of Mercy statue behind. Keijimitsu Daigo realizes that had he not made the pact with the demons, Hyakkimaru might have had the power to save his land. Hyakkimaru departs on his own, leaving Dororo behind, but they share the understanding that their paths will cross again in the future. Years later, a young woman named Dororo rushes to greet Hyakkimaru, who smiles as he turns to see her, marking a hopeful and heartwarming reunion.